Thank you so much for coming out, for taking the time to come to our 5th annual Transgender Day of Remembrance Candlelight Vigil. My name is Nikki Berlew, and I am a queer woman, a wife, a mother, a former coach, and a proud teacher, and a very proud activist with several organizations, both locally and nationally. The Human Rights Campaign has been keeping track of trans, non-binary, and gender-expansive people who were killed by violence every year since 2013. That baby is mine. Sorry. He just turned 1. In 2020, that number jumped significantly from 2019, from 27 lives lost to 37. And I know it doesn't sound like that many, but that's still a huge number. It's still a huge increase, and it's still, 1 life is too many. 37 is too many, and that's so many lives changed, so many lives affected. So I knew at that point that I wanted to do something to bring attention to it, but I didn't know what. Then, tragically, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. And Action Together hosted a beautiful and COVID-safe vigil at the Luzerne County Courthouse just down the road from here. I attended that. It was moving. It was beautiful. And I said, this is what I need to do for Trans Day of Remembrance. We can do a vigil. So I planned it in 3 days. And a dozen people showed up on Public Square to stand together and to honor those that we lost. Now 5 years later, and here we are, and take a look around this room. Just, pause for a second and look at the faces of people next to you, in front of you, behind you. These are the faces of people who care about our community, who care about what's happening, who care about each other. And they care about making the world better. That's what's in this room right now. In 2024, at least 30 trans, non-binary, and gender-expansive people were killed by violence. 77% of these victims were people of color. 53% were Black trans women. Our movement was started by Black trans women and trans women of color, Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera. To have this still happening is awful. 60% of these victims were killed with a gun. 39% of the victims with a known killer were killed by a romantic or sexual partner, a friend, or a family member. So killed by someone they're supposed to be able to trust and supposed to be able to feel safe with. That was the person who killed them. 40% of these victims were initially misgendered or dead-named by the authorities or by the press. As a mom and as a teacher, I'm especially concerned for the future of our community and for the world that our children must grow into. The Trevor Project keeps tabs on a lot of these things. They hold a yearly national survey on mental health of LGBTQ plus young people. They found some disturbing statistics in this year's. Of these young people surveyed, 39% of them, so almost 4 out of every 10, seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. 12% of them did attempt suicide in the past year. A full 50% of them who wanted mental health care were not able to get it. And as a testament to our political climate, 90% of the young LGBTQ plus people said that their well-being was negatively impacted due to recent politics, and 45% of trans and non-binary young people reported that they or their family have considered moving to a different state because of LGBTQ plus related politics and laws. Now, this is a survey that was completed, I think about a month ago, but before the most recent election, which means that these statistics are probably going to get worse before they get better with what has just happened. But for some silver lining, that same survey also reported that more than half, or 54%, of transgender and non-binary youth found their schools to be gender affirming. 54%, which we can do a lot better, but I think that's still pretty great. Those who did report that, they also reported lower suicide rates. And I'm not super surprised by this finding because I've seen it firsthand. Kids stick up for each other. When a student's dead named or when someone uses incorrect pronouns, there's always someone to jump in. And, oh, their name is this. Oh, their pronouns are this. I've seen it at the high school level. I've seen it at the middle school level. I've seen it in kids as young as 4th grade saying, oh, that it's not she, it's they. And just as easily as they would correct, their name, or just as easily as they would say, no, Mrs. B, you said that we were going to have this first today before that. It just comes out. They just do it. And it's second nature to them. And I can't wait to see what else this generation does. It's been proven time and time again that support is what matters. So what we need to be doing is support this community. We need to stand up, we need to speak out, and we need to make sure that we are not standing for hatefulness or for transphobia or for bigotry of any kind. We need to affirm and support trans kids and trans adults. One person can make the difference, and that person can be you. I have the distinct honor of welcoming Alec Walker-Serrano to the stage, and I can't wait to hear what they have to say.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alec Walker-Serrano. I'm the chair of the NEPA Stands Up Queer Liberation Committee. I'm also a member of the PA Coalition for Trans Youth. My pronouns are he, him, his, or they, them, theirs, and I'm a non-binary trans man. I want to start my remarks this evening by sharing a story that I haven't told publicly before today. Around this time of year in 2021, I was struggling to leave an abusive relationship. I had already made 2 attempts to leave, but was drawn in once again with breadcrumbs of care and the promise that he would change. Each day with him felt like a practice in numbing myself and packing myself up and putting myself away back into the closet. It didn't start that way. At first, he seemed understanding. When we met, I was already an out and proud trans guy. He positioned himself as someone who was open to learning and growing with me. But once I was sucked in with the charismatic, empty promises, once I was already in love, he showed me what he really thought of who I am. He made a daily practice of reminding me of what he thought of my gender. He broke me down through emotional, verbal, financial, physical, and sexual abuse, and gaslit me into believing that somehow I deserved it. Before I met him, I had spent several years coming out and embracing the man I'd always been. But with COVID raging on and me being cut off from those childhood and college friends who truly loved me, I found myself retreating back into the depths of my soul and ready to give up on living life on my terms. Questions I had asked myself and that my parents had asked me when I came out echoed in my head. But who would love you? What if you end up all alone? So I stayed. I tried to leave, but I came back. I tried to leave again, but I came back. After yet another argument in which I was dehumanized and degraded, I finally decided I couldn't do it anymore. So I packed up my bag and I walked out the door. But as I tried to leave, he stopped me and physically restrained me. I attempted to break free and he strangled me. I remember feeling my feet lift off the floor. I remember the look in his eyes, nothing but pure hatred behind the glassy stare. But more than that, I remember a voice, speaking softly at first, and then growing louder and louder in my head. It was a voice I hadn't heard this loudly since I was a child. It was me. I want to live. I want to live. I want to live. Those words echoed in my head. I fought for my life and managed to escape with only a sprained thumb and a strained neck. And then I kept fighting. I called the police to report what had happened. I followed up and took myself to the station to make a statement. I reported it when he violated the order of protection and faced him in court twice and won. I am one of the fortunate few who lived and found justice. After I left him, I discovered a vibrant queer community here in NEPA, in the place where I was born and raised. I met so many beautiful trans people who filled me with joy and hope and love, and who continue to do so. Many of you are here with us tonight. If I haven't told you yet, I want you to know something. You saved my life. You helped me answer those prodding, trauma-filled questions. Who would love me? You would. What if I end up alone? I'm more connected than I have ever been. I am loved, and I am not alone. And I need you to know that the same is true for you. You are loved. You are not alone. We're here tonight to honor trans, non-binary, and gender-expansive people who died by violence this year, to speak their names, to share their stories, to remember them as their authentic selves. The roots of the violence we face as a community run deep. It is a gruesome reality that we must face together. According to the Trans Remembrance Project, of those trans and non-binary people who were killed this year, 50% were Black trans women, 86% were Black and Indigenous people of color. We have to ask ourselves, why is this the case? Because systems of oppression are intertwined. White supremacy and colonialism create the conditions in which BIPOC, trans, and non-binary folks are underrepresented, underappreciated, and disproportionately affected by systemic and interpersonal violence. As a white-passing Latino trans man, I must speak up. I must speak the truth of what we will witness tonight as the slideshow of names and faces flash across the screen. Most of those faces belong to Black and Indigenous people of color who faced multiple layers of oppression while they were alive. Acknowledging them in their entirety, acknowledging the complexity of their stories, is the least we can do. Let us hold space for each other in our grief and our sorrow, especially those who are most at risk. Let us do more to uplift the most marginalized while they're still here, and do more to keep them safe. Let us also remember our history, our trans elders, so many of whom are trans women of color, who came before us and showed us what it looks like to be wholly oneself without compromise or apology. Let us remember that Indigenous cultures across the globe have always recognized gender diversity outside of the Western binary. Let us look to Native American Two-Spirit people, whose genders are intertwined with their tribal lineage, who are revered by their communities, but often forgotten by others. Trans people have always been here, but modern systems of white supremacy and colonialism have attempted to deny us access to our rich history and put us on the defensive. Let us remember Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera as we walk through our daily lives. They fought to survive and to build a better tomorrow for queer people everywhere. We must continue that fight through actions of self-love, through coming together with our community in times of crisis, by holding each other in grief, by creating spaces for the incredibly diverse community of trans people that exists in the US, or as some Native people refer to it, Turtle Island. On this 25th anniversary of the first Trans Day of Remembrance, let us not forget those trans women who came together to create this day, so that every trans person lost would be remembered and honored as their authentic selves and with dignity. We can find strength and resilience by looking to our ancestors and our elders. In the midst of that relationship that almost took my life, I wrote a poem, and it goes like this. The urge is almost always there, lying in wait. The voice in my head gobbles up things you say, just like it gobbled up my parents' words. The first thoughts of death started when I couldn't even see over the counter, praying to God to make it go away, to make me normal. This was my normal, hating myself and the way God made me. I didn't choose the self that resides in this body, but pretending I wasn't there made me a shell. I built a caricature around what others expected, around what others wanted me to be, what they believed me to be. The secret was so shameful that I buried it in my guts, but it kept bubbling over, no matter how much I tried to ignore it or pretend it wasn't there. So I tried to force myself into loving parts of me that had always felt alien and wrong. I embraced them for everyone to see. I self-loved myself into even deeper self-hate. It was still not me. It was never me. I was trying to love someone that I made up. So I let go. I let go of what they wanted. I let go of the hate that I learned from those around me, and I listened to the vibrations in my bones, the meek and tiny boy's voice in my head. I'm sorry you don't understand, but I've always been here. I closed my eyes and I was 5 again. I was me for the first time again. Before the sense of self had been ripped apart and tainted by others. I was running in the woods and scraping up my knees. When I laid my head at night in my twin-size bed, I dreamt of myself, my actual self, not the one that I would later manufacture at others' behest. My dreams were the one space where I was always me. I took my mask off at night, and for a brief moment between wake and slumber, I acknowledged myself, the self that had formed naturally. My body deserves love. It deserves a gentle hand. And it is also a canvas to do with as I please. My body is mine and no one else's. God did not make this body and did not make this mind. I am star stuff. I am the result of trillions and trillions of absurd moments in time that led to a coming together of 2 people who made a choice. My parents gave me life, a gift that is mine to keep and do with as I please. My body needs more than a gentle hand. It needs tough love so that my mind can rest, so that when I wake up every morning, I don't feel a weight on my chest, so that when I look in the mirror, I don't see someone vaguely familiar, but not quite right. So when I look down, I see a body that is mine, not someone else's skin that I somehow slipped into. I would cut off every limb if it meant peace for my brain, if it meant I could truly breathe for the first time. I am not afraid of knives or needles or anesthetic. I've only ever been afraid that no one will love me if I love myself the way I need to. I am a man, self-made. I hope someday to revisit this poem and revise it, because the truth is I am not self-made. I found the strength to be who I am through all of the queer and trans people who came before me, and through all of the trans and queer people and allies who are here with me today. In our darkest hours as a community, I know that I am not alone. I love myself because I love you. And loving myself the way that I needed to has led me to more love from others than I have ever known. In our darkest hours as a community, I know we will continue to shine brightly and shout loudly. I know we will honor our fallen siblings today and every day, because that's who we are as a community. I know today we will cry, and tomorrow we will fight, because that's who we are as a community. Trans people are some of the most beautiful and courageous humans to walk this earth. Every trans person who we've lost this year was a universe in and of themselves. They will not be forgotten because we would never allow it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alec, for sharing. You're amazing. We have Morgan from Wilkes University to share some remarks.
Welcome to Wilkes University and welcome to the 5th Annual Transgender Day of Remembrance Vigil. My name is Morgan Steiner. I'm the president of the Gender and Sexuality Alliance here at Wilkes University. We do what a lot of these amazing community groups do, but on a smaller scale here at the university. We also wanted to thank you for coming and let you know how honored we are to be able to have a space like this to hold events like this for members of our community and for some of the most vulnerable people in this community that we deeply care about. Although the reason that we're here tonight is sad, I think that there is one joyful thing that can come of this. If nothing else, look at this room around you and realize that you do have a loving and supportive community who is ready to take care of you and help you. No matter what happens on a global, national, or state scale, look around the room and know that there are people that help you right here in NEPA, whether you're a student here at Wilkes University, one of the other surrounding colleges, or if you live in the area. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Morgan. We also have Junia Lawton from Wilkes.
Hello, I am Junia. I grew up in rural Virginia in a predominantly conservative-leaning area, and I wanted to go into my story surviving in a southern area. I first realized I was trans when I was in middle school. I realized that it was a thing you could be, and I immediately knew it was for me. I came out publicly my freshman year of high school. I changed all of my names. I changed everything I could. And my school was luckily somewhat accepting, at least the faculty were. I experienced a large amount of bullying growing up. It caused a lot of self-esteem issues and mental health issues for me and for a lot of my friends who were also subjected to it. I very much so wished I could leave, I could run away, I could do anything but be in that school at that time. And for me, it was almost horrific to keep going there. But I met someone who was very insightful towards me and guided me towards the right resources. The local community in Richmond, 45 minutes away, helped me get through this incredibly hard time for me. And for me, being trans and going through everything I have been through, it is most important to me to tell you all that survive. I had to tell myself that a lot. For me, survival was what I needed to do. I needed to keep going through everything, all of the words, all of the actions. Trans resilience is trans existence. I would not have lived without the community that I had growing up. And I feel like communities like NEPA and communities like what I had in Ashland, Virginia, is what keeps people going, keeps people alive. And it's incredibly important for everyone to be able to have this community, everyone around us, to tell us to keep going, keep surviving, to live. I ended up leaving. I ended up going to Wilkes University in northeastern Pennsylvania, and it was a great decision for me. Everyone I have met up here has been superb and fantastic in helping me survive in a state I knew no one in. And the northeastern Pennsylvania community really saved me, kept me going through school, kept me even through this election and this very stressful and rough time for a lot of people I know, and for me specifically. It has, and you all have encouraged me that there is a life I can continue living without fear in the near future, hopefully, where I can survive.
Now I'm very, very pleased to call up Helen Davis. Helen has been a huge supporter of this event the entire time it's been in existence, and I don't think I would be able to keep doing it if it weren't for Helen. Hi, everyone. Actually, before we do the names, Olivia was here and not feeling well and asked me to read the speech. So these are not my words. These are Olivia's words, just to be absolutely clear. On this Transgender Day of Remembrance, we pause to mourn the lives of our transgender and gender nonconforming siblings who have been taken from us too soon. Their deaths are a painful reminder of the violence and discrimination that still exists in our world, but they are also a testament to the courage and resilience that defines the trans community. As we remember them, we also honor the advocacy, strength, and love they shared with the world. Their voices, their activism, and their presence made our community stronger, and their legacy will continue to inspire the fight for justice, acceptance, and equality. Today, we mourn their loss, but we also recommit to continuing the work they began. Let their lives and the advocacy they so bravely carried guide us as we move forward in the pursuit of a world where all trans people can live freely, safely, and authentically.
So thank you for those words, Olivia. What I'm going to do now is I'm honored to share with you the names and a little bit about the trans people we lost in this country this year. I want to remind everyone that the information we share with you, the names that we share with you, is always just, unfortunately, what we know. We always know it's at least this many people because so many trans people get misgendered and misidentified by police officers, by their families. And so we never have a full count, unfortunately. But we want to honor the lives that we do know about and also recognize the lives that we don't know about, and remember that violence against trans people is violence against all of us. And until we can stop trans violence, none of us are going to be free or safe or okay, because they are part of us. They are us. I say that as a cisgender ally who is also the mom of a trans person, and as a faculty member who connects to so many amazing trans students who become really important to me, and my many, many, many community friends who I love. So we want to remember the entire community, remember all of the people whose names we don't know, but we are thinking of in spirit while we remember these names. Also, I will do my best with pronunciation, but I beg forgiveness if I don't get something right. I will give all of the names. I will share a little bit about a few of the people listed, but the QR code that's on the screen here and will show up on the screen again later is from Remembering Our Dead, which gives us information, so you can actually read more about each of these people. This site actually includes, we're doing just American lives that we know about that were lost, but it's worldwide. It has information from other countries as well. Quainisha Chantel, we just lost on November 15th. Jay Flores, who was 23 and worked with people escaping domestic violence. They were killed in a hit-and-run incident. San Coleman, Honey Walker, also named, who also went by Honey Daniels and Honey Moffett. Effie Donova Velspira, who died from liver and kidney failure after injuries caused by their father. So it breaks my heart when I see families and other loved ones causing harm. Kasim Omar. Kasim was a refugee from Somalia and came here to be safe. But Kasim was not safe here. We failed Kasim. We need to do better. Barbie Iceland, who also was known as Red China. Vanity Williams, who was an Air Force veteran. Tyvion Lathan. Dylan Gurley. Monique Brooks, whose friends describe her as fun-loving and smart, and an amazing hairstylist. Kenji Spurgeon. Shannon Boswell. Holly Likens, who was 14 years old and lived in Pennsylvania, and who was taken from us far, far too soon. Her remains were found dismembered in a garbage bag. Liara Kaylee Tsai. Michelle Henry, who worked at the San Francisco LGBT Center's youth program trying to help other people. Naomi Jenkins. Tay Dior Thomas, a 17-year-old from Mobile, Alabama. Her grandmother said that she always had a huge smile on her face showing her dimples and that she would help anyone. Jaslyn Johnson, 18, Las Vegas. Star Brown lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and so many people shared outpourings of love for Star after she was lost. Keita B., who loved to dance and sing and perform. Andrea Doria dos Passos. River Nevaeh Goddard, who also went by Phoenix, who was an artist and loved to write her own music. Yella Robert Clark, Jr. T. Legion Billions Arnold. Meraxis Medina. Alex Taylor Franco. His friends described him as an athletic, cheerful man with a big heart who was more than just Alex. Alex died at the age of 21 in Utah. Diamond Bringman, who was described as larger than life, but was killed in a drive-by shooting that seemed intentionally targeted. Reina Hernandez. Righteous T.K. Chevy Hill. He was an activist who pushed for inclusion in his community. He opened a full-service hair salon called Evolution, dedicated to serving the LGBTQIA+ community in Atlanta. But he was shot and killed in Georgia. Africa Perilla Garcia, sometimes known as Emma Garcia, who was also shot, this time in San Juan, Puerto Rico, in February. We don't even have Africa's picture, but we remember. Sasha Williams, a selfless artist with a heart of gold. Kitty Monroe, also known by her birth name of Marcos Logo, was known for her painting and singing and having a great sense of humor. She did an interview for the YouTube channel Tales from the Streets, so if you follow that show, you may have seen Kitty before. Megan Riley Lewis. Megan objected to a food delivery driver misgendering her and was killed. Amber Minor. Savannah Ryan Williams. In addition to these names, we want to remember the at least 295 transgender people who were killed worldwide in the past year in violent deaths. We also want to remember the more than 20 transgender Americans and more than 46 transgender people worldwide who died by suicide in the past year, because suicide is often a direct result of violence and discrimination. I particularly want to remember Nex Benedict, who was 16. We held a vigil for Nex after their death. They were beaten up at school a couple of days before their suicide. I also want to remember Serenity Birdsong and Phoenix Cassetta, who were both students in college, leaders in their LGBT organizations on their colleges, who gave up because it was too hard to deal with the realities that they were facing. We failed them. We cannot keep failing. We must do better. If you've come to previous vigils, you might recognize my baby, who's not one anymore, who is 18, and is away at Berklee College of Music, but wrote this song last year for the Transgender Day of Remembrance and shared a video for us so that they could be part of our day from Boston.
I'd like to welcome Shay from Rainbow Alliance, who's also kind enough to live stream our event tonight.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for showing up tonight to remember, to mourn, and to stand in solidarity with our transgender and gender expansive siblings who have been taken from us far too soon. The candles we lit tonight symbolize more than just memory. They symbolize hope. They symbolize the resilience of our community and the undeniable truth that light and love and respect and acceptance will always outshine the darkness of hate. We've heard the names, we've seen the faces, and we felt the weight of the lives that we've lost. Each one a person with dreams, with hopes, and with a future that was stolen. But as we grieve tonight, let us also be reminded that grief, though heavy, is not the end of the story. The fight continues, the work continues, and it continues with every single one of us. At the Rainbow Alliance, we want to remind you tonight that you are not alone. To those of you who are mourning, whether you've lost a friend, a loved one, or simply feel the weight of this collective grief, we're here for you. Our support is unwavering, and we are committed to walking with you through the difficult times ahead. We stand with you in your pain, and we stand with you in your strength. To the trans and gender expansive people in this room and beyond, please know that you matter. You are seen, you are valued, your lives are precious. And no amount of hate or violence can diminish the truth of who you are. The Rainbow Alliance will continue to fight alongside of you for a world where you can live with dignity, with safety, and with joy. We also want to extend a message of support to those who may be struggling right now. If you are feeling the weight of this world and need someone to talk to lean on, please reach out. We're here. Through our resources, our services, and our community that you've heard so much about from so many other speakers tonight. We're going to support you whatever way we can, and no one should have to face this alone. Tonight is a moment to honor the lives that we've lost, but also a moment to renew our commitment. The road ahead is long, but together we will walk it, side by side, until every transgender and gender expansive person can live freely, safely, and without fear. Thank you again for being here, for honoring those who are no longer with us, and for committing to the work that still lies ahead. Together, we will continue to shine light into the darkness, and we will keep fighting for a world that celebrates and protects us. At this time, we will be opening up the floor to anyone who would like to speak. So if you would like to say a couple words, please feel free to make your way up to the stage. Thank you.
And a final thank you also to our so many organizations who have helped with this. The Wilkes GSA, I should hop back up here again, I guess. The Wilkes University GSA, Queer NEPA, NEPA Rainbow Alliance, NEPA Stands Up, the PA Coalition for Trans Youth, Action Together, In This Together, and so many others. Thank you so much. So if anyone would like to speak, please feel free to come up. We'd love to hear from you.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening. I hope we're doing well. I know we're all grieving. Just gonna be kind of long-winded, but it's gonna get to a point, I promise. Hi, my name is Jinx Leonard. I am a neurodivergent Black trans woman, born and raised in Virginia, family down in the deep, dirty South of Mississippi and North Carolina. And since 2018, I've been fighting for my life, fighting for my identity as a person who is also a system. So when I decided to transition, despite not having any kind of familiar support, and my mom kicking me out in the height of the pandemic in December 2020, I was sleeping in my car for a good 3 months before my best friend helped me get to the place that I was supposed to be here today. Even when I was homeless in a bed-bug-ridden hotel, I was still fighting for my identity and proving my worth, not to just lovers, friends. I was proving my worth to my employers who thought it would be easier to just let me go instead of giving me a chance to make money so I could survive. When I moved up to Wilkes Barre, PA, it wasn't because of a choice. It was the only left thing to do because my housing situation became too unstable. I moved up here saying goodbye to the people who I called my friends, my family, and I moved up here for safety, not even sanctuary, because I didn't know anyone. And I still struggled and still had to fight for my identity, going to job interviews and to prove to them that I was capable to do an entry-level job. And then when I finally got a chance, they thought it was too difficult to keep me around because I was too free-spoken, too out there, too outgoing. I didn't comply. And I panicked when they fired me. I panicked and I thought, this was it. This is it. I'm gonna be homeless again. So I did the one thing that I knew, and I finally did it, and I attempted to kill myself. And the one thing that I didn't realize until I woke up the next day is that I had a time of death. I was flatlined for 3 minutes. The head nurse who was looking after me said I should be grateful to be alive. And I was so angry. I was so angry at all my friends who tried to save me, because why should I have to fight when they have their cushy lives? But then I was grateful at the same time, because holy shit, killing yourself is expensive if you don't succeed. And I had to live with that. And I flatlined. I got a second chance, and I decided to take it. I went to a partial hospitalization program 80 miles away from NEPA every day for 5 days for 2 weeks to get better, to not give up this chance, to not give up what I have. But I still did not have community. And even then, I was asking myself, why did I do this? I was struggling to find work. I was struggling to find stability. So I turned to sex work for a service and prostituted myself for months so I could pay my bills. And I sold myself so I could be safe. I was grateful to meet wonderful people in NEPA Stands Up when I went to the Virgil for Nix. And they were so influenced by my words that they let me be a part of their organization because they thought I could help them to make it a better place, a safer place for people of color and trans people as well. When I got arrested from a sting operation for doing a sex working job, the police officers was debating to wondering what my gender was. And they were making jokes and saying accent, rage burrowed deep inside of my chest, and I wanted to lash out. But I know if I lashed out, I would just be another statistic of police brutality. All because I wanted to survive, to pay bills. But I was grateful. I had community, and they helped me raise money of $1,200 so I can pay the fines and fees that they were going to keep me from living my life. I now have a misdemeanor on my record. I wanted to be a teacher, but now I have to fight tooth and nail for that to happen, to show them that my background and what I had to do to survive does not make me who I am. I'm also a poll worker. I've been working in the polls in Bear Creek Township for 2 years. And during this election, I had 2 death threats of people wanting to lynch me and an outburst that made everyone, even the conservatives, uncomfortable when they looked at me and said that I need to change my appearance before I get hurt and hurt the people around me. I was angry with the outcome of the election. I was more angry that I just thought I should kill myself once more. I know what happened the last time. I know how I can succeed. But then my friend from Florida came up to visit, and they brought their trans kid of 9 years old, who looked at me and was inspired when I asked them what name they want me to call them. They smiled so wide, and they asked me all these questions, and they just felt so comfortable with me. An hour and a half of knowing little Asher, and I felt like that was my nephew. So how could it be fair to kill myself when I have someone looking out for me? I still think about it. I think about it constantly. I think that the next 4 years is going to be a living hell, and that I am going to be up on that list in one of these years. And I'm just going to be a statistic, that I'm just going to be a memory, and that people are going to comply because I'm not worth fighting for. Is that selfish of me? Possibly. But at the same time, I've already died before. I don't need to do it again until I am ready. The last thing I want to ask all of you, the people who are transitioning, the people who want to give up or to run away, we cannot run. That's what they want us to do. It's not safe just here. It's not safe in another country that is not going to accept us when we must band together. You fought so well and so hard to be who you are right now. You cannot give up. Please remember, death before detransition, and I've already died enough for all of us. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name's Lain Kaplan. I am an adjunct at Marywood University. I am a non-binary trans woman. I'm pretty sure I'm the first out faculty person at Marywood. I'm also not currently having any classes with them because they didn't get the enrollment in my program, but I don't think it's because of who I am that I'm not teaching right now. But I really want to just get up here and tell you folks, there were 2 things that came up. The first, there were 2 points I read that just really made me break down and cry recently, because, yes, I have been under a lot of pressure like Jinx. I've been getting death threats as a person who writes about trans issues and about civil rights and about discrimination, since I am an openly Jewish academic. Someone called me, I get death threats too. Someone sent me a letter in snail mail to the place where I was working 2 months ago. And but another death threat this year, someone called me a mouthy Jewess. And this is the first that I've had quite a few, and this one actually made me feel kind of proud, because they objected to me being openly Jewish, but they wanted to, they used the feminine insult, Jewess, because they're like, yeah, you're a gross woman, but also you're not a woman. But you're worse than a Jew, you're a Jewess. I'm like, thank you, that's very affirming. And I'm not willing to quiet myself. It's hard to say that, actually. I think that's somewhat of a lie, because those of you who know me, 3 weeks ago, I had this really bitchin' awesome blue hair, and I absolutely loved it. I joke that, like, there's this character Strong Bab from the 2000s. By the way, I'm 47. I'm making Homestar Runner references. This is like early 2000s internet culture, very old stuff. All right. People know, you gotta have blue hair. Ugh, I feel gross saying that with that. I can't do Strong Bad's voice anymore. It's just too masked for me. My dad made threats to me. I've been, since I came back from Japan in 2020, during COVID, right before the lockdown got real serious, because I wasn't able to transition when I was working in Japan. So I came back to try to be myself. And earlier this year at Marywood, I finally got to get back to my true avocation, which is teaching in front of a classroom. And it was my first time as myself, and it was really wonderful. I'm losing a little track, but yeah, the thing is, like, I realized that I did get my hair back to blonde because I'm applying for Japanese jobs, and Japanese people do not care for tattoos. They do not care for unnatural hair. Yes, that is despite the fact that there are lots of teens who go out and flout the culture, but academic culture isn't like that. And I felt that I felt diminished because I really loved that hair. And that is part of how I express my femininity and how I express my individuality and how I stand out from other people. But my dad threatened me at home, made threatening comments to me before, and physical abuse when I was younger in my life, and I had to get out. And I was in an Airbnb for 3 weeks. I quit my job and got myself a much better job where I'm working to help save my friend from a house which he's disabled and he can't get out of. And I've been working really, really hard to make him some money selling stuff that he told me, he's like, yeah, I have these things in my house. My parents will sell them when I'm passed. And I was like, God damn it. What the hell are you doing? I've had tons of suicidal ideation and PTSD from abuse and harassment and hospitalizations from people beating the crap out of me because I'm Jewish and because they thought I was gay. Well, it turns out I actually am, but I didn't know at the time. And these people were, when I got kicked out of my house, I didn't want to go back to my job, and I quit my job, and I got a job where I'm working to help raise money for my friend who's disabled so that he can live in a house that's actually safe. And 2 weeks ago, with the money I was able to raise, he was able to get a dumpster, and I and a couple other people helped in, and we moved about 500 pounds of cardboard and garbage out of his house, and he's going to get to a position where he can get people to come to his house and help take care of him. He's 56 years old, dealing with horrible depression and disabled, and he needed to get to a sanitary environment where he wouldn't end up in the hospital again. And I was able to do that for him. And I was doing that because I didn't want to dwell on how my family kicked me out. And when my dad threatened me, I wanted to retaliate on him by ending my life. And I had a second or two where I looked at the knife rack and I had those thoughts. But I rebelled And I said, no, 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 no. No, look at all the progress I've made. Look at all the progress I've made. I'm not going to give all that up for that loser to spite him. No, I'm going to live. And, you know, I'm very jealous of younger people who are going to spend more time and have that opportunity to shape the whole of their lives and not go through the decades of trauma and abuse that I did. But the thing I wanted to tell you guys real quick, these were two statements that I really thought moved me. The first is, I cannot hate myself into a version of me I will love. I'll repeat it. I cannot hate myself into a version of me I will love. And the second point, I cannot punish myself in any way that will unmake the past. I cannot punish myself in any way that will unmake the past. And I know that those were two sentences I really need to know years ago after my head cracked. And I think they're worth sharing because we need to survive. And that's part of, and that our survival is how we honor and respect the fallen and those who were taken from us. Thank you.
Talk, gather, stick around, share stories, share support. That's the good thing about it being in here is that we're not standing out in the cold. We're, we can be in here making connections, building community. So thank you so much.
My name is Lain Kaplan. My pronouns are she, her. I am a non-binary trans woman. I am an adjunct faculty member at Marywood University, and I work with NEPA Stands Up. I'm on their Queer Liberation Committee. So Trans Day of Remembrance, it obviously, I mean, we think about the people who were not able to survive a brutal and hostile culture that resents trans and queer people just for existing. And we need to honor those of us who were not able to make it here today. And we need to rededicate ourselves to work to make a better world so that all people in a queer and trans community and all people of marginalized backgrounds and everyone can be free and who they are authentically. We definitely need a lot of fighting with legislators and with policymakers and administration officials to make sure that we have access to the resources that we need and freedom from discrimination in housing and employment and in schooling. We have obviously material needs, and we need people to tell off the bigots and the people who profit from hate in their families and in their workplaces, even if they don't feel like their dog is directly in the fight, they have to stand up for the people who aren't in the room, because I think it's Hannah Arendt said, like, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. I was a really frustrated trans woman who it took me 9 months to get access to hormone replacement therapy. I was having trouble getting insurance, and I went to a healthcare conference for doctors teaching about transgender medicine, and I vented my spleen and expressed how miserable and frustrating it was, and people reached out to me and said, hey, we feel the same way too. Do you want to hang out and socialize and share together? I joined the Women's Pinball League in Scranton, and I got to make a bunch of friends, and I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for 20 years and working with other people for the benefit of my students. But, once I recognized that I was proud to be who I was, I really had to stand up for fighting for my own rights. As long as you get here, it doesn't matter how long, You need to make sure that you're safe and secure. And there is going to be a point where you have to make a leap of trust in yourself. I don't want to say faith, because you have to believe in yourself and you have to want to live, because being queer and being trans and being yourself, there are absolute costs to it, and people will come in and chip in to get your back, but you can't do it by yourself. Your job by yourself is to sustain yourself until you're ready to reach out and make friends and build bridges.
Hi, my name is Jinx Leonard. I use she, her, / they, them pronouns. I work with the organization NEPA Stands Up. Trans Day of Remembrance represents to me the remembering of the fallen, of our trans brothers and sisters who have been unfairly having their lives taken away. Also to remember all the lives lost by suicide as well. We need to really see a lot of support of not just performative allyship, we need to see direct action. We also need to have mutual aids and funding so we can have the basic necessities so we can strive to create art, to work for our community, or just to have a stable job. I was a transplant from Northern Virginia. I moved up here in March of 2022 after some horrific incidents that happened in my life. I found community with NEPA Stands Up, with the vigil of Nick Benedict. It may seem like it can be scary, but if you're already out and proud right now, then you're already doing what other people are afraid to do. So I'm proud of you, and you can keep on going. So my name is Jinx Leonard. I wrote a book called Welcome to Second Puberty. It is just short stories and poems about the trans experience, things that are relatable, happy-go-lucky stories as well. You can find me on Instagram, Jinx and the Bam Fam, at Jinx and the Bam Fam, JINXANDTHEBAMFAM, or you can also find me on Blue Sky, Jinx and the Fam.
Yeah, my name is Alec Walker-Serrano. I use he, him, his, or they, them, theirs pronouns, and I'm the chair of the Queer Liberation Committee of NEPA Stands Up. To me, Trans Day of Remembrance represents remembering our history. There are countless amounts of trans and queer people who have come before us. We've existed for thousands of years. So for me, it's about remembering those who were lost to violence, but it's also about accessing our pasts and connecting to all of the trans people who came before us and drawing strength from their resilience. I would like to see cis people start to do their homework. I think that there is a ton of misinformation out there right now about who trans people are or what our lives are like or our healthcare is like. And a lot of that can be combated if cis people picked up some books, did a little research, listened to us, and actively stood up for us. I think that would make the biggest difference. Unfortunately, a lot of trans people aren't listened to when we talk about our own experiences. So I think that getting more allies is the biggest thing we could do right now to push queer rights and trans rights forward. Any book recommendations? Oh my God, there's so many. I guess probably this is going to be a little bit out there, but it's a really good introduction to the history of sex and gender in the United States. It's called Intimate Matters by John D'Amelio, who is a historian primarily focusing on queer history. It is it's not a textbook, but it is a thick book, but there's so much detail in it. And it was one of those first texts that I read that opened my eyes to the fact that queer history exists at all. And it gives such a really good overview of the United States in particular. So I feel like that's a great place to start, especially if you really like history. But if you don't really like history, there is another book by, and I feel so bad because I cannot remember his name. I can only remember his Instagram handle, but Pink Manta Ray. He is a trans man. He was an athlete. He was a swimmer, and he wrote a book basically, I think it's titled like "Why the Way We Talk About Gender Matters." He, she, they. Why the way we talk about gender matters. And that's a really good like introductory book to just like how to talk about gender and why it's important to respect people's pronouns and their identities and the way that they talk about themselves. So it's a little less dense. I will say that. So yeah, those would be my 2 recommendations. I kind of just walked out into the street one day. I know that sounds silly, but it's true. After Roe fell, as somebody who's transmasculine and does not want to get pregnant, was very scared. And so I just held a rally of my own in Scranton's Public Square, and it happened to be at the same time as another rally, a rally for gun violence. And I met a bunch of people there, including Holly, who's the organizer with NEPA Stands Up, and she really just gave me the space to do the work that I want to do. And through the work that I've done with the Queer Liberation Committee, I have met so many amazing queer people. I've connected with so many different organizations. So literally just going outside, honestly, and just saying what I thought brought a good level of attention, enough that I was able to connect with people who are aligned with me and my values. And now I am part of this amazing community, and I feel really held. This is really cliche, but it gets better. I promise it does. I have been hopeless at so many points in my life. I have attempted suicide. I have an ex-partner who tried to kill me because I'm trans, and he didn't like who I was, and didn't want me to be who I was. And I thought that I wouldn't survive that, and I did. And so what I would say is just even if it feels really hopeless, there are people out there who love you, even if they don't know who you are. I love you. I don't need to know who you are to know that you are a human being worthy of respect and love and dignity. So yeah, remember that it gets easier. Take it step by step. Find the people who love you for who you are, and if people don't love you for who you are, then they're not people who deserve to be in your life. Yeah, there is one thing I'd like to add, which is something that I talked about in my speech was white supremacy and colonialism. And I really think that this is a conversation that needs to be centered when we're talking about queer liberation. We need to be talking about the ways that other systems of oppression impact people, right? Most victims of violence in the trans community are Black and Indigenous people of color, and in particular, Black trans women. Trans misogyny is a real thing. Misogynoir is a real thing. We need to understand these connections. We need to talk about these connections. We can't shy away from them as a community. So I think that's a really important conversation that we need to be having. We need to be listening to queer people of color, trans people of color, indigenous people, Two-Spirit people. We need to be listening to them. We need to have solidarity with those communities. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to liberate anybody. None of us are free until we're all free.